He caught his wife humiliating his mom, dirty water crashing down on her old body, her weak voice begging, "Please stop," while he stood frozen, unable to breathe, unable to move, knowing in that second that his life was over, and whatever he did next would destroy someone forever. Daniel Brooks had everything people said should make a man happy: money, respect, a big house in New York, and a name that opened doors. But none of those things mattered on the morning he stood alone in his kitchen, holding a cold cup of coffee, staring at a chair that would never be filled again. That chair belonged to Emily. Emily was his wife, his friend, the woman who knew how he took his coffee and when to leave him alone. For 20 years, she was the voice that calmed him, the hands that steadied him, the heart that held his family together. When she died in a car accident, the house did not just lose a person, it lost its breath. Ruth Brooks, Daniel's mother, felt the loss just as deeply. She was 70 years old, her back bent from age and life, her hands slow but warm. Emily had treated her like a real mother, not a burden, not a problem. They talked every day, shared meals, shared stories, shared silence. When Emily died, Ruth did not cry loudly. She became quiet, too quiet. Daniel watched his mother sit by the window for hours, looking at the street, like she was waiting for someone who would never come. He watched her eat less, talk less, smile less. He wanted to help her, but he did not know how, because he was drowning too. To survive, Daniel buried himself in work. He left early, came home late, traveled often. His construction business grew bigger, but his home grew emptier. At night, he lay in bed alone, listening to the house, every sound reminding him of what he lost. 8 months passed like this. Then Lauren Miller entered his life. She did not come loudly, she did not push, she did not rush him. He met her at a work event in New York, where she helped organize meetings and guide guests. She was young, calm, and soft-spoken. When Daniel mentioned his wife had died, she did not say the usual words people say. She did not say, "Be strong," or "Time will heal." She just listened. They talked over coffee, then talked again another day. Lauren spoke about losing her own mother, about how pain stays, even when people pretend it leaves. Daniel felt understood in a way he had not felt since Emily died. When he went home that night, he noticed something strange. The house did not feel as heavy as usual. It was still quiet, but the quiet did not crush him as much. Lauren did not try to replace Emily. She never spoke badly about her. When Daniel talked about his late wife, Lauren listened with respect. That mattered to him. Months passed slowly. Calls turned into visits. Visits turned into something careful and gentle. Daniel felt guilty for smiling again, but Lauren never made him feel wrong for it. The day Lauren met Ruth, Daniel was nervous. His mother meant everything to him. He feared rejection, fear that Ruth might feel replaced. But Lauren arrived with soup she cooked herself. She spoke softly, she listened to Ruth talk about Emily, even when Ruth repeated the same story twice. When Ruth called her Emily by mistake, Lauren did not correct her. After Lauren left, Ruth surprised Daniel by saying, "She seems kind, not like someone pretending." That small sentence stayed with him. Over time, Lauren became part of the house. She moved carefully, asked before changing anything, included Ruth in small decisions. She helped Ruth walk, helped her remember her medicine, sat with her in the evenings. Daniel watched from a distance and felt relief. He told himself he had done the right thing. He told himself his mother was safe. They married quietly, in the garden Emily once loved. Lauren chose a simple dress, said she did not want to erase the past. Daniel believed her. The first month of marriage felt calm. The house had sound again, plates clinking, voices at dinner, small laughter. Daniel began traveling again for work, trusting that Lauren and Ruth were fine together. But something slowly changed. Ruth began speaking less. She stopped calling her sister as often. When Daniel asked if everything was okay, she smiled and said yes, too quickly. Daniel noticed marks on her arms once. Ruth said she bumped into a door. Another time, her room smelled like she had cried, but she said it was nothing. Lauren, on the other hand, seemed more caring than ever when Daniel was around. She fussed over Ruth, asked if she was comfortable, brought her tea, spoke gently. Daniel told himself he was lucky. One evening, Ruth tried to say something while Lauren was in the kitchen. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Lauren walked in, smiling, asking if they needed anything. Ruth shook her head and went quiet again. Daniel did not see the fear in his mother's eyes. He did not hear the warning in her silence. Then came the trip to Chicago. Daniel left early in the morning, kissing Lauren goodbye, hugging Ruth, promising to call. Ruth watched him from the window as his car drove away, her chest tight, her hands shaking.
That same afternoon, a problem at the worksite forced Daniel to return early. He did not call ahead. He wanted to surprise them. When he pulled into the driveway, the house looked peaceful, too peaceful. He heard voices from the backyard. Instead of going inside, Daniel walked around the side of the house. That was when his life broke apart. He stood behind the fence, hidden, his breath caught in his throat. Lauren stood over Ruth, who sat on a small stool near the garden. In Lauren's hands was a bucket filled with dirty water, food scraps, and sand. Before Daniel could move, before his mind could understand, Lauren lifted the bucket and poured it over Ruth's head. Ruth cried out, weak, confused, shaking. The water soaked her clothes, stuck food to her skin. She whispered, "Please stop. I do not understand." Lauren laughed, cold and sharp. Daniel could not scream. He could not move. His legs refused to work. In that moment, he understood something terrible. This was not the first time, and whatever he did next would decide everything. Daniel did not rush out from behind the fence. Every part of him wanted to run, to shout, to grab Lauren and pull her away from his mother. His hands shook, his mouth went dry, his head felt heavy. But something inside him stopped him, a quiet voice telling him that if he acted now, the truth might disappear forever. Lauren wiped her hands like nothing had happened. She leaned close to Ruth and spoke in a low voice Daniel could barely hear. Ruth nodded slowly, her shoulders bent, her face empty. Lauren walked back toward the house. Daniel stayed hidden until the backyard was silent. When he finally moved, his legs felt weak. He did not go to Ruth. He did not go into the house. He turned around, walked back to his car, and drove away from his own home. His eyes burned, but he did not cry. He knew if he cried now, he would lose control. He parked far away, sitting alone, breathing slowly. His mind replayed the scene again and again. The bucket, the words, his mother begging. This was not anger. This was planned. This was evil. Daniel understood something painful. If he confronted Lauren, she would lie. She would cry. She would turn herself into the victim. And if he believed her, even for 1 second, his mother would suffer more. So Daniel made a choice. He would become quiet. That evening, he returned home like nothing was wrong. He hugged Lauren, kissed her cheek, asked about her day. The words felt heavy in his mouth. Lauren smiled easily. Ruth stayed in her room. Daniel went to his mother later that night. She looked clean, but tired. Her eyes avoided his. He wanted to ask her everything, but fear held her silent. "I love you, Mom," he said softly. Ruth squeezed his hand, her fingers thin and cold. "I love you too," she whispered. Daniel slept next to Lauren that night, staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathe, wondering how someone could be so cruel and still sleep peacefully. The next morning, Daniel went out and bought cameras, small ones, hidden ones, cameras with sound, cameras that saved everything. He spoke to a lawyer without giving details, only asking what was legal inside his own home. The answer was clear. He could protect his family. That same day, while Lauren was out, Daniel installed the cameras in the living room, the kitchen, the hallway, Ruth's room, the backyard, every corner where pain could hide. When Lauren returned, Daniel acted normal. He joked, he smiled. He told her he had another business trip coming up. Lauren looked pleased. She said she and Ruth would enjoy their time together. That night, Daniel packed his bags slowly. He kissed Ruth on the forehead and told her he would call. She looked at him for a long time, like she wanted to speak, but fear closed her mouth again. Daniel left the house, drove a short distance, and checked into a nearby hotel instead of leaving the city. He opened the camera app on his phone. At first, nothing happened. Lauren cleaned the house. Ruth stayed in her room. Hours passed. Daniel almost doubted himself. Then lunchtime came. Lauren cooked a warm meal for herself. She placed it nicely on a plate. Then she carried a different plate to Ruth. Through the camera, Daniel saw it clearly. Cold soup, old bread. Ruth asked softly if she could have something warm. Lauren's face changed. "Eat what you are given," she said sharply. "You should be grateful." Ruth lowered her head and ate slowly, her hands shaking. Daniel's chest tightened, his hands clenched, but he did not move. Over the next days, the truth poured out. Lauren shouted at Ruth when she walked too slowly. She hid her glasses. She mocked her memory. She served bad food and blamed Ruth for not eating. She played loud music when Ruth tried to rest. She gripped her arms too hard when helping her stand. The worst part was the words. "You are a burden," Lauren said one afternoon. "Daniel only keeps you because he feels sorry for you." Ruth cried quietly, saying nothing. Daniel watched everything. He watched his mother shrink. He watched Lauren smile afterwards. By the third day, Daniel had hours of proof. But the truth went deeper. Daniel hired a private investigator. What he learned shook him. Lauren had been married before, twice, rich men. One died, one escaped. Elder abuse, money stolen, names changed. And then the accident. Emily's death. The investigator showed him photos, reports, strange details about that night. Lauren had been near the place Emily died, too near. Daniel felt sick. He was not married to a cruel woman. He was married to a monster. Daniel planned carefully. He invited family, friends, business partners, Lauren's parents, and Ruth's sister to a dinner at the house. He told Lauren it was about legal matters, about the future. Lauren was excited. She dressed beautifully. She smiled proudly. Ruth sat quietly, confused but sensing something was different. When everyone arrived, Daniel stood up. He did not shout. He did not accuse. He pressed play. The room went silent. They watched the abuse, the words, the water, the fear. Lauren's smile disappeared. People cried. People gasped. Lauren screamed that it was a lie. Then she said the worst thing. She confessed. She laughed. She admitted everything. That was when the police stepped in. Lauren was taken away in handcuffs, still shouting. Ruth collapsed into Daniel's arms. He held her tightly. "I am here," he whispered. "I will never leave you again." And for the first time in months, Ruth believed it. The house felt empty after the police took Lauren away. Not quiet like before, but heavy, like the walls themselves were tired. Daniel sat beside his mother on the couch, holding her hand, afraid that if he let go, she might disappear. Ruth did not speak for a long time. Her eyes stayed on the floor. Daniel did not rush her. For months, she had been forced into silence. Now she needed time to find her voice again. That night, Daniel did not sleep. He stayed awake, checking on his mother every hour, listening to the house, promising himself that no one would ever hurt her again. The next days were filled with questions, police visits, and lawyers. Daniel showed the recordings again and again. Every time he watched them, his chest hurt, but he forced himself to look. He needed to remember what almost destroyed his family. Ruth was taken to a doctor. Bruises were documented. Her weak body told the story her mouth had been too afraid to tell. The doctor spoke gently, explaining that what Ruth suffered was not only physical harm, but deep emotional damage. Daniel felt guilt like a weight on his back. He blamed himself for traveling, for trusting, for not listening sooner. He sat by his mother's bed one evening and finally said the words that had been burning inside him. "I failed you, Mom," he said quietly. Ruth reached for his face, her hand shaking. "No," she said softly. "Evil hides well. You did not know. What matters is that you came back." Her forgiveness broke him more than anger ever could. The case against Lauren moved fast. The recordings were clear. Her own words sealed her fate. But the truth did not stop there. More evidence surfaced. Investigators found proof that Lauren had drained money from Daniel's accounts. She had opened credit cards in Ruth's name. Old reports from her past marriages showed the same pattern. Older people, money, abuse. Then came the truth about Emily. Traffic footage, witness reports, phone data, all pointed to one thing. Emily's death was not an accident. Daniel sat in a small room at the police station when they told him. His ears rang. His hands went cold. Emily's face filled his mind. Her laugh, her kindness, her love for Ruth. Lauren had taken her life to take her place. The trial lasted weeks. Daniel attended every day. Ruth came when she felt strong enough. She held Daniel's hand as lawyers spoke, as recordings played, as Lauren sat behind glass, no longer calm, no longer in control. When Lauren spoke, she showed no regret. She blamed others. She blamed stress. She blamed Ruth. The judge did not listen to excuses. Lauren was found guilty of murder, elder abuse, fraud, and more crimes than Daniel could count. The sentence was life in prison, no chance of freedom. When the judge spoke the final words, Ruth closed her eyes. Tears fell, not from sadness, but from release. Justice did not erase pain, but it stopped it from growing. After the trial, healing began, slowly. Ruth went to therapy. At first, she barely spoke. Then one day, she talked for an hour. Then 2. She began eating better. She started painting again, something she loved long ago. Daniel changed his life completely. He stopped traveling so much. He worked closer to home. He learned to listen, not just to words, but to silence. They replanted the garden together. They planted flowers Emily loved, and new ones too, symbols of life continuing.
Every time Ruth touched the soil, she smiled a little more. Daniel started a foundation to help other families notice signs of elder abuse. He spoke publicly, even when it was painful, because he knew silence protects evil. Years passed. Ruth grew stronger. She laughed again. She lived with peace, surrounded by love, until her quiet passing at 78, held by her son, safe and respected. Daniel mourned her deeply, but this time without regret. He had protected her when it mattered most. One evening, long after everything ended, Daniel sat alone in the garden. He looked at the flowers, the house, the sky, and understood something important. Evil can wear a kind face. Love must be watchful, and truth, no matter how buried, always finds a way to rise. This story is not just about pain. It is about courage, patience, and choosing to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Because sometimes the most powerful thing a person can do is to stop, look closely, and refuse to look away. Dear viewers, if this story touched your heart, then let it stay with you for a moment. This was not just a story about money or marriage or betrayal. It was about silence, about the pain many parents carry behind closed doors, and about how evil can hide behind a smiling face. Ruth suffered quietly because she loved her son, and Daniel almost lost the person who mattered most because he trusted the wrong person. Let this story remind you to look closely at the people around you, to listen when someone grows quiet, and to never ignore that feeling when something feels wrong. Sometimes love means standing up, even when it is painful, even when it breaks your heart. If you believe in justice, if you believe that truth always comes out, please subscribe to this channel and like this video so more people can hear stories that matter. Now tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? And before you go, answer these 3 questions for me. What would you have done if you were Daniel and saw that moment in the backyard? Do you think Ruth was wrong for staying silent to protect her son's happiness? And how can families do better at protecting elderly parents from abuse? Your voice matters. Share your thoughts below.